All right, so welcome officially to both of you. Elaine, welcome back. Kate, really nice to have you. Good to have someone new in the session. So let's dive in, shall we? Have a look at today's email, which has a daily quote and a bit of teaching related to that, and then it leads us nicely into our lesson for the day, which is it's quite short, just a review lesson. So 3 key ideas to it. So let me share my screen with you, and we can then dive into all this. So you'll get a taste. This is how the sessions generally go. Do an expression first, which you've just done, and then into an example of the daily email that I do. You get one of these every day as a member. So maybe you can kick it off by reading for us. If you would kindly do that. I'm just going to share my screen. You can read that quote for us. Is that big enough for you, or do I need to make it bigger?
You can make it a slight bit bigger.
Okay, let's see if I can accomplish that. There we go. How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So this is a quote from Abraham Maslow, who was an American psychologist, famous for the hierarchy of needs. So we'll go into that and relate it to course teachings today, which hopefully you'll find interesting, Kate. So if you can kick it off by reading that quote from him, kindly.
Kate or myself?
Kate.
Kate.
Okay to do that?
With pleasure. We fear our highest possibilities. We're generally afraid to become that which we can glimpse in our most perfect moments under conditions of great courage. We enjoy and even thrill the godlike possibilities we see in ourselves in such peak moments. And yet we simultaneously shiver with weakness, awe, and fear because before these very same possibilities.
Yeah. So great quote by Maslow, who was the father of what's called humanistic psychology, most famous for formulating a 5-tier hierarchy of needs. Almost everyone's heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It puts the basic physiological needs like food, water, and sleep at the base of the pyramid of needs, and then the need to self-actualize at the top, as is illustrated here. So you have your physiological needs: air, food, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction, etc. Then to safety needs, so that's all about security, employment, having enough resources to live, health, having property, and so on. Then up to love and belonging. Now we talk about relationships with friends, with family, having intimacy, having a sense of connection to the people you live with, to your community, and so on. Then into esteem. So now we're talking about having a sense of self-esteem, of self-respect, status, recognition, strength, freedom, all these things. Some of them are egoic, and some are pointing you in the direction of this self-awareness that he called self-actualization initially, which is the desire to become the most that you can be. The question is, what is that actually? So he did this in sort of mid career, and he became famous for it. And then towards the end of his life and his career, he obviously thought deeply about it, and he realized that this was not a complete hierarchy, that this was part of it, but that there was other levels that he needed to incorporate. So that's what he did. Many people believe incorrectly that this is it. There's no other hierarchy of needs, because his second hierarchy, his expanded hierarchy, wasn't as well known. But self-actualization is not the highest level, according to Maslow. It was the first version of his model, subsequently formulated an expanded 8-level hierarchy of needs that includes 3 additional growth needs, shown below. So there you have the same: physiological, safety, belonging, and love. esteem, and then it changes. Then he sticks in cognitive needs and aesthetic needs. So this is the need for cognitive, intellectual stimulation. That would be things like, literature, reading, theater, art would come into aesthetic needs. We like, human beings like things that are beautiful, that look nice, that speak to our sense of beauty. And he recognized those needs in his hierarchy, and he called those growth needs. So these are when you're starting to grow and you're starting to expand into these needs. That's what we call growth as a human being. And then you get self-actualization. So that's being the best person I can be, but there's still a limit to that. You still define yourself as a person who's now trying to self-actualize, as someone who's going to become all that they can be, but there's still a self-concept in that. You see that? What he found was that beyond that was this level of transcendence, that beyond self-actualization, beyond any sense of being a separate self, lay a transcendent awareness. He just called this transcendence. And when you have a peak experience, you touch transcendence. That was really what he was saying. That at the transcendence level, the top of this expanded pyramid, you have these what's called peak experiences. And his research showed him that often such experiences lasted only a few moments, but nevertheless left an indelible mark on the person and often became the defining moment of their lives that inspired all their subsequent words and actions. So in my expression when I was sharing with you, Kate, I mentioned that experience I had when I was at the Vipassana retreat, and it was a moment of transcendence, and I just went into this pure awareness for, it wasn't very long, maybe a few seconds, probably a few minutes, but I don't know because there was no sense of time. That's exactly the kind of experience that Maslow was referring to, and he's saying often they're quite brief. Mine was not hours and hours; it was a few minutes, but it was really a defining moment. That moment was when I really started to understand this, all of this stuff intuitively. I had a massive download. The whole teachings of the course really started making sense to me. And then I went on to start the Art of Letting Go course and this community. And those were clearly linked. If I hadn't had that experience, would the community have grown in the way it did? Probably not. So he also found that these experiences were characterized by transcendent states of love, peace, joy, and even bliss. So initially, he called them what many spiritual traditions have called such experiences down the ages, which is mystical experiences. That was his first term for it. Okay, these are mystical experiences. But this terminology didn't go down too well with the psychological academia of the day. Remember, he was a psychologist and he would write papers. And so they were like, well, this is all a bit woo-woo and mystical, and we don't really like. So these people are more interested in the specific, definable, and concrete than the abstract, indefinable, and mysterious. And so in the end, he just called them peak experiences. But nevertheless, he maintained to the end of his life that there really was no difference between what he peak experience and a mystical experience. Oh, there's John. Great. So,
oh, John's arrived.
Yeah, he has indeed. So let's just welcome him and we'll carry on. Hey, John, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Hi, Elaine.
Welcome back. Twice in one day. So Elaine is here with her friend. Actually, Elaine, do you want to share your video? So Kate has joined us, who's new. She's known Elaine for 8 years, is it? But they haven't met until yesterday. So
yeah,
they're a parcel together.
Excellent. It's nice.
Which
great.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have some new people. So we're just going through the email today and talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and peak experiences, how that relates to Jesus's teachings, and that'll lead us into our workbook lesson. And then we can click on this. We can probably get to the text in about half an hour, something like that. Okay, so as I was saying, Maslow insisted that a peak experience and a mystical experience were one and the same thing. He just used the term peak experience because it was more acceptable to his peers in the psychological world. But he could see very much that this is what people like spiritual masters like Yeshua, the Buddha, and so on had reported throughout the ages. And he did a lot of research on this. such as the one Yeshua had in the desert, which I described in yesterday's email, that inspired him to start his ministry and change the world forever. And so there's throughout history been this resistance to the mystical and the unexplainable, which is our ego's fear of the unknown that Maslow mentions in today's headline quote, which is for John's benefit. Let's go back and share that quickly. John, in fact, why don't you read that again, just to kind of kick you into the groove of things. This is what Maslow said.
Yep. We fear our highest possibilities. We are generally afraid to become that which we can glimpse in our most perfect moments, under conditions of great courage. We enjoy and even thrill to godlike possibilities we see in ourselves in such peak moments. And yet we simultaneously shiver with weakness, awe, and fear before these very same possibilities.
Yeah, so that was what kicked off this whole teaching on peak experiences. What I really want to show is that whether you call them peak experiences, which is, and you come from Maslow's perspective of some kind of hierarchy of needs, at the top of which is transcendence, or whether you take a purely spiritual view, you end up in the same place. It's actually all saying the same thing. There is just this resistance to the mystical and the unexplainable, which is just our ego's fear of the unknown that Maslow mentions in the quote. So while we yearn for something more than what philosopher Ken Wilber calls flatland, which is the world of mediocrity and spiritual blindness to our true magnificence, and can experience brief thrilling moments of a transcendent reality in self when we have an expanded or peak experience, we often slip back into fearing the same experience that we yearn for because it threatens our ego's sense of separate identity. So it's very common that one can have a peak experience. John, you mentioned your friend Nigel had a peak experience years ago and then just slip back into this ego world of depression and so on. So it can happen very easily. So what we've got to do is choose moment by moment to invite this expanded or peak experience into our awareness and let go of the fear that blocks it. Be continuously open to that. It doesn't mean you're always going to be having a peak experience, but if you're not quite in a peak experience, if you're in a sense of peace and happiness and there's joy, that's pretty good. That's maybe not the ecstatic experience that the peak experience describes, but it's pretty good. It's a happy dream, as Yeshua calls it. And we just let go of the fear that blocks it, because we're scared of our own magnificence, as Marianne Worm says in her famous quote. Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It's actually our light and not our darkness that most frightens us. And we ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant and gorgeous and talented and fabulous and be able to change the world? And she says, well, who are you not to be? You're just a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We're all meant just to shine as children do. We're born to make manifest this glory within us of God and overcome our fear in the process. And this is what we're here to do. So the question is, how can I consciously invite these kind of mystical peak experiences into my life? And Yeshua gives us the answer in A Course in Miracles. This is from section 4 of chapter 18. So Elaine, maybe you can read that for us. You haven't read yet. You're still convinced.
Yeah. You are still convinced that your understanding is a powerful contribution to the truth, and it makes what it is. Yet we have emphasized that you need understand nothing. Salvation is easy just because it asks nothing you cannot give right now.
Yeah. So it's quite a great line, actually. You still think that your understanding contributes to the truth. The fact is, the truth is the truth, whether you understand it or not. So he's saying you just need to. Salvation is easy. Awakening is easy in our translated language, just because it asks nothing you cannot give right now. In other words, your full awareness and attention. And notice in the image, I've just picked this up. Look at the rainbow there. Isn't that interesting? Just showing that the rainbow colors. So I've only just noticed that, but obviously appropriate. The light then comes through, it's pure white, and then in the world it reflects in these myriad colors. So through these words, he's pointing us to an experience that's way beyond mere intellectual understanding. This experience is a so-called mystery of grace that is the mystic experience sought by so many spiritual teachers and experienced by the truly authentic spiritual teachers of this world, teachers of God in course terminology. As you'll be familiar with, Kate, if you read the Manual for Teachers, that's the terminology he uses.
Yeah.
Because how else can you teach authentically but from your own experience? And that's really what makes an authentic teacher of God. You're not just teaching concepts and ideas, you're teaching from your own experience. That's what really differentiated Yeshua from, sorry, I called Jesus Yeshua because that was actually his real name. That's what differentiated him from the Sadducees and the Pharisees in his time, is they taught from concepts, he taught from experience, and was very different. And people resonated with him, and they didn't really resonate with the Pharisees and Sadducees, which is why they found him so threatening. So it's worth reminding yourself about the definition of a mystic briefly, which according to the Oxford Language Dictionary is, maybe someone else read this. Kate, do you want to read that definition?
Is this set up okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the one, a person who seeks by contemplation and self-surrender to obtain unity with or absorption into the deity or the absolute, or who believes in the spiritual apprehension of truths that are beyond the intellect?
Yeah, it's a fair definition. It's someone who's essentially gone to the transcendent state. A mystic would be someone who has touched that state, who has had an actual experience of that state, not just theory. Oh, I know transcendence exists. They've actually gone into that and experienced it, and you come back with a different perspective on everything once you've had that experience. You're never the same again, which was what Maslow noticed, that people would have these spiritual experiences, and they would have now access to truths that are beyond the intellect, a state of being that can only be experientially known. And that's really what mystics do. They just know because they've experienced it, gone beyond the theory and the practice. So when you talked about living it earlier, that's exactly what the mystics do. They I experience it, I live it, I embody it, rather than I'm an intellectual, I'm an academic, I study it, and I teach conceptual knowledge, which again was the difference between Yeshua and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and a marked difference, which meant that he was much more popular. People resonated with him. His teachings, were growing, and they were feeling obviously very threatened because people were moving away from them to him, which is why ultimately they killed him. But anyway, I won't get into that. So this is one way that many spiritual seekers have tried, and ultimately this approach will succeed because of its purpose. So how can I experience grace consistently? Probably your next good question. Well, you might say, do I have to become a mystic and spend hours in meditation? A lot of people think of mystics and they go, right, that's someone who's spending their whole life meditating, because that's the conventional view of it. And it is an approach. It's one way. Particularly in the East, they've used this. People take them off and go into solitary places, caves, ashrams, monasteries, that kind of thing, and they spend hours and hours in meditation, and it certainly does work. And Yeshua says, look, that it will work and it'll succeed because of its purpose, which is in alignment with the truth. But Yeshua calls these methods tedious and very time-consuming. For all of them look to the future for release from a state of present unworthiness and inadequacy. That's a direct quote from the text. So he's actually saying there's a quicker way. So he doesn't just leave us there. He says the quicker way is this. He gives us a better alternative. So yeah, someone else read that. Maybe John, if you can read this. Your way will be different.
Your way will be different, not in purpose, but in means. A holy relationship is a means of saving time. One instant spent together with your brother restores the universe to both of you. You are prepared. Now you need but to remember you need do nothing.
Yeah, so what's he saying there, essentially?
Well, he's saying we can kind of condense time, which is an illusion, of course, by meeting with our companion in a true way, with true communication, real authentic communication.
And so the holy relationships that all our relationships offer us are the fast track to grace or peak experiences. That's what he's saying. It'll save us a lot of time. And we need do nothing but practice forgiveness, practice letting go of all of our judgments of our brothers and therefore of ourselves. So why is this, you may be wondering? Well, because in the forgiving of our brothers and sisters for their apparent sins, we also forgive or let go of our own and release ourselves from the struggle to overcome the idea of sin and its attendant guilt, which if you watch this movie on the life and legacy of Martin Luther, I don't know if any of you have watched it, but highly recommend it because it talks about his journey and how he's really struggled with this idea of guilt and sin. Being Catholic at that time, Catholic Church was dominant and very much into the idea of sin and guilt, that we're born into sin, we're original sinners. There was the whole ritual of confession, and at that time they had these things called indulgences, where you could apparently buy your way into heaven. The church would go around saying, well, if you pay this much, so many pennies or pounds or whatever the currency was, and then not only will you get into heaven, all of your family will get into heaven as well. And Martin Luther looked at this and went, no, that's not right. Seriously, that actually has nothing to do with scripture at all. And so he had the courage to stand up to that and say that's just not true. That's actually totally false. And the church condemned him and said he's a heretic and he should recant, and he refused to. And there's a whole story that unfolds. I won't ruin it for you, but really good movie to watch, to see. And he had this experience of grace. So the connection with the peak experience is his whole life's journey kicked off because he struggled with this idea of sin and guilt. And one night he just spent the whole night meditating and praying on this particular quote from Ephesians in the New Testament. It's from Paul. So yeah, maybe you can, if you would kindly read that for us, Kate. For it is by grace. Yeah, for it is by grace you have been saved.
Right. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourself, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast.
And he didn't fully understand that to start with, but he wrestled with that for an entire night and realized then, there's a truth behind this. By grace you have been saved. It's not what you do that's going to save you. It's just because of who you are. And it's just realizing that, well, I am innocent and holy and sinless and complete already. And it really doesn't matter what I do. And that's a simple idea. But if you're consumed with sin and guilt, and that you have to, do all this repentance and penance, and then this is a revolution in thinking. And he's saying, but this is in the scripture. We study this. This is in the Bible. So why then is this not common knowledge? Why is religion so full of sin and guilt and fear? And why is this not being highlighted? And so his reformation of the church came and going, hang on, we're not really seeing this correctly. There needs to be an adjustment in our perception. So it was forgiveness, or it was part of the awakening. And he questioned the existing, perception of the Catholic Church based on sin and guilt. So this epiphany or peak experience then shaped his entire life and the entire Protestant Reformation movement in Europe, which profoundly changed certainly the Western world. That was the foundation for the Industrial Revolution and Western democracy. Without the Reformation, we'd probably still be laboring under this pretty oppressive regime of the Catholic Church, sin and guilt, and he was really a revolutionary, saying, no, this isn't correct. And actually, it's in Scripture, right? The Bible that they supposedly believe in and study, it's right there for all to read. And at the same time, technology came along and the printing press came along, so people could actually read for themselves, which was dovetailed with what he was saying. If he'd done what he did a couple of hundred years earlier, it probably wouldn't have happened because of the printing press. And he was the first best-selling author in the world because all of his works were just taken by the printers and they just printed them and sold them. And they made no money from it. It was days before copyright had been invented. But he, at one point, I think 25% of all printed material in the world was Martin Luther's. That's how popular it was. And so his epiphany, that one night, absolutely changed the world. 500 odd years ago, it's profoundly changed the world ever since. Industrial revolution, Western democracy, and you go, wow, all that came from one man's epiphany. You could argue, well, someone else would have had the epiphany. Probably they would have, but it happened to be him, and he was, the one who was chosen to do that work. So it's hard to overestimate the importance of such peak or grace experiences. So I really, highly recommend watching that movie. It's free on YouTube. There's the link. It's in your email today as well as your text message.
What is the movie again, please?
It's called A Return to Grace. So what I'll do, I'll just copy that.
And it's on YouTube.
Yeah, free on YouTube. Yeah, exactly.
By whom?
Return to Grace: Luther's Life and Legacy. So if you search for Return to Grace, you'll find it. And
I will.
But, I'm happy to. I'll post the link to the group as well. So Elaine, please just forward it on to.
Oh yes, of course.
Thank you.
If you join our community, then you will get this kind of information sent to you directly. Send it out every day.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. So there's the link. I've just sent it to the group, Elaine. So
yeah,
forward it on.
Just join on my phone.
So these kinds of resources, it starts to bring these teachings alive, I think, and that's why I include them. It's like, okay, so you can see how one man actually lived this and how his epiphany did profoundly change the world. And he had the courage to follow it on, not just go, okay, I've had this experience. He then had the courage and the conviction to do what he needed to do and go up against the very powerful Catholic Church. They tried him. I don't know if you know the story, well, watch it, but they tried him and he was condemned to death. He was told to recant or he would be condemned to death, and he refused. He just said, I can't. So basically he said, I'd rather die than go against the truth that I know. And fortunately his benefactor saved him and he kind of went underground, and so they didn't get to condemn him to death. But you imagine the pressure. It's like, you will recant or you're going to die. It's like, no pressure then. But he said that is when, in that moment where he had to make that decision, that's when he really connected with spirits, and he had this deep, he understood then what God's will really was. It's all explained in the movie, so well worth watching and quite inspiring. You could also read this article about the signs you might be a mystic, and I've also included a bonus video on mystical experience.
I've sent you the link.
Yeah. So all of this, all of these, this is kind of my own interpretation, some resources, and then that leads nicely into our workbook lesson, which is all about grace. This is a review lesson, but the first one is about grace, living in grace, and being released by grace, which speaks to the idea of the peak experience and so on. So that's how I try and connect the dots, really. So that brings us to our lesson for today. Any questions so far?
No, it's absolutely marvelous. You're talking about Martin Luther and the Reformation, again following history, and then Henry VIII and all coming down now. But the fact that you had to pay indulgence to get released from God and all. It's a business. It is.
Yeah, and he saw that. You know, he was just like, this is just a business model, and it's making the Catholic Church incredibly wealthy. But this isn't what Jesus taught. This is not according to true scripture. It's false. And he had the courage to stand up and say that to, you know, these powerful, essentially business moguls. I mean, the Pope was basically in charge of this massive business system, and he challenged them and said, no, this is absolutely wrong. And you can read that in the very Bible that you supposedly study. There it is in scripture. It's by grace you've been saved, not by works. Not, you know, you don't buy your way into heaven. This is a ridiculous idea. And thank goodness someone had the power to challenge that, because that was really the start of the undoing of sin and guilt in the mind of the Son of God. Because it was questioned. It was like, maybe this isn't correct. Maybe there is another way of being a Christian, you know, not weighed down by the sin and this guilt, and we all sinners, and we've got to keep going and, you know, and doing confession, and then buying these indulgences. I mean, the system had become toxic and very corrupt. And it needed a reformation, which is exactly what, you know, his journey was. That's what he came to do. And, you know, he did that and changed the world very profoundly. And so I bring these things in because you see in human history that, you know, this matters, that people having these spiritual experiences, these peak experiences, isn't just, oh, well, that's nice. This can profoundly change the world. If someone really has that experience and they act on it, it does change the world. We've seen it many, many times. Martin Luther, in recent times, someone like Gandhi, Nelson Mandela from my own country, profoundly changed the whole country because he you know, he'd had some of these kinds of experiences in prison. Going back in history, the Buddha, Yeshua, I mean, just these people have these amazing experiences, and they bring that experience into the world, and it creates massive change, and society changes in a very positive way as a result of one person and their experience. And that's exactly what he's talking about in the course. You know, you share the grace with all of your brothers and sisters, and it is potentially world changing. Now, for a lot of us, we don't necessarily see that impact, but the fact is, it's having an impact just in the ether. Whether you live a life like Martin Luther or Yeshua or the Buddha, these are unusual lives, or you just have a, you know, kind of normal life, but just spreading the message in your own way. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is that you live it out, and you do spread the message and extend the love, which is what today's lesson is really all about. You know, by grace I live, by grace I am released, and God is only love, and therefore so am I. So let's practice this, and then we'll do a meditation on it, shall we? Unless you have any other comments or questions. Elaine, John, any other comments or questions?
No, that's very clear. Yes, it's.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. So I managed to just close the app. It's a pity. Never mind. So we'll crack on with the lesson then. So God is but love, therefore so much. So maybe just John, you read the original alternative of this is the key idea, the kind of sandwich idea that sandwiches the lessons. Read that, and then Elaine, maybe you read the By Grace I Live. Oh, in fact, I think let's let Kate read that middle one, and we'll just discuss it a bit and contemplate the idea, and then go into meditation once we've done that on it.
So my reading from the top, God is but love, and therefore so much.
So John's going to read that. God is but love, and therefore so am I, and the alternative, and then you're going to read By Grace I Live.
I've got it.
I think it's very appropriate for you, and then we'll just discuss it a bit. Yeah.
Okay. God is but love, and therefore so am I.
By grace, yeah. By grace I live. By grace I am released.
Yeah.
God is love. Yeah.
The alternative of God is but love. So this is where the translations come in that I was talking about.
Right.
Instead of God, my source is only love, and therefore so am I. Now that makes complete sense, right? If my source is only love, then how can I be different from my source? It's completely logical. God is but love. And for a lot of people, God, they struggle with that word. They struggle to understand what God means. So I give the original and alternative. If the original works for you, then use it. If the alternative works for you, use it. And often in the translation, people get more understanding. Okay, well, that's God is only love. My source is only love. Okay, yeah, my source is only love. Therefore, so am I. Yeah, well, if my source is only love, I can't be anything different from my source. That's kind of obvious. Therefore, so am I. There's a logical progression there, very clearly in the alternative. Maybe not so much evident in the original. And the idea is just to frame the lesson for you and say, yeah, well, this is the context of it. There's only love. I am this loving awareness, and so by grace I live. By grace I am released. And grace is this. Grace is this ability to transform our thinking and awaken into one of these transcendent states. So let me go to the lesson. So this Kate is part of a course manual that I give to people who do the Art of Letting Go course, and then it just becomes the manual for the whole year's program, which has various diagrams in it. So I'm going to go to the Holy Trinity diagram, which kind of illustrates the idea of grace and where grace fits, where grace sits. So you've heard the term level confusion in the course.
Which confusion?
Level confusion.
Right.
Level confusion, yeah. So level confusion is when people get confused at what level they're dealing. So some people will say, well, there's only God and there's nothing else, and there's only this pure awareness and nothing else matters. And that's a level 1 statement. And that's ultimately true. But if you're stuck in level 2, dealing with the difficulties of a life here, and you're being triggered and you've got various negative thoughts and emotions going on, that might seem very, very far removed. Oh, well, none of this really exists. It's all just, there's only heaven, there's only pure formless awareness. So there's a process to get there. And that process is exactly what the course is teaching. That's why it's called the Course in Miracles and not a Course in Love or Course in Revelation. The miracle is this process of changing your mind from being really addicted to all the happenings of the world, the people, places, events, circumstances, situations, trauma, successes, failures, and all the experiences that seem to happen and exist in the physical universe of time and space, and just reacting to those mindlessly, unconsciously, without awareness. Just something's happened and now I'm upset because of the external event. That's where the ego wants to keep us. This process of forgiveness or miracles or grace coming into the mind or enlightenment, also called transformation, resurrection. I'll go through all of it. So true perception or Christ vision is what it's called often in the course. Miracles, another term. We translate miracles as corrections. It's also called forgiveness. We call it letting go. Flow is another modern psychological term for it. Surrender, acceptance, salvation, that's a course term. Atonement, or one-ment as we prefer pronouncing it, the last judgment, the second coming. These are all course terms for this process. It's the same process. Enlightenment, satori, is an Eastern term for an enlightenment, sometimes used in the course, but not that often. It's more the atonement or salvation. He talks about rebirth, resurrection. He uses those terms as well. We use awakening, grace, again, a course term, transformation. You talked about intuition, guidance, healing. Some of these terms are course terms, others are not course terms. The point is they're all talking about the same process. So if you understand that, then it becomes quite simple. You go, well, whatever terminology you use, whatever spiritual tradition you come from, it's this process of awakening, surrendering, forgiving, whatever you want to call it, that is critical. And you need to learn how to do that. When you do that, then your true self starts to awaken. You start realizing experientially who you are. True perception feeds into the true self. You start to realize that I'm really only love. as today's lesson says. I am this higher awareness. I'm the extension of perfect love. I'm the Son of God, if you prefer traditional course language, or I'm the Christ. In the East, they might call it the Buddha or the Atman or the soul. Whatever terms you use doesn't really matter, because it's an awareness within you that starts to awaken as you perceive correctly. And the more you perceive correctly, the more you identify with this true self or this higher awareness. And so this Christ self or higher self or true self, and this process of forgiveness or letting go, which of course calls the Holy Spirit, we translate as remembrance of perfect love, work hand in glove to systematically and progressively awaken you to the point where you're ready for this final step. So Yeshua says, well, when you're here and you fully identified with your true self or Christ, then you're very, very close to the state of pure formless awareness of perfect love, or knowledge, God, Father, heaven, truth, knowledge, the universe with a capital U, revelation, oneness, being, pure formless awareness of perfect love, source, spirit, life, reality, essence, presence, the now. In the East, they call it Brahman, Nirvana, Samadhi. It's the same thing. You're very close to that. And God takes the final step. When you're ready, you might just have an epiphany. You might just have a spiritual experience where you just go into that state and you get it and you experience this, as I did, as many other people have done throughout history. Usually as a result of spiritual practice. Often they were ready. Sometimes it just happened by grace. They got hits on the head, or they had a near-death experience. You mentioned you'd had one of those, and it just kind of arises, and you go, wow, that really is an amazing gift to glimpse that. But then you're going to come back into the world, and you're going to have to still live in time and space. And this is where the Holy Trinity becomes very, very useful. It's an operating system for your life. So the idea of a true self or Christ self that now can perceive correctly through this lens of the true self of oneness, and translate that absolute oneness into a corrected perception, is what the Course is teaching. And that's essential to learn this. Otherwise, you just get disconnected. If you try and just stay in pure formless awareness and you don't translate into perception, you can't really operate and function in the world at this level. You just have to kind of check out of the world, remove yourself from the world, which is what many people have tried to do by removing themselves from the world, going into caves and monasteries and ashrams and saying, well, I'll just kind of meditate, as much as I can in the day, meditate, pray. And as he said in that quote we studied, that is a way, but it's actually time consuming and tedious. The quicker way is to forgive or let go of whatever your experiences in life bring you. So if fear comes up, if guilt comes up, if sin comes up, anger, hatred, attack thoughts, and so on, you let them go. And that's then, as soon as you let them go, you're starting to awaken to this true self, and you're perceiving correctly. And that's really all the Course is saying. It's that simple. But to practice it and do it is a process, and it's something we need to practice and learn on an ongoing basis, which is why it's given us a detailed course in training our minds how to do this. So the Course is directed towards teaching us this, how to live as a true self in the world and perceive correctly. And he's saying, well, when you're ready, that'll prepare you for the next step, which God will take, and will take you back into what Ken Wapnick called level 1, this pure formless awareness of perfect love, from level 2. But there has to be this transition period of correcting your perception, which is exactly what the Course is training you to do. So I've just gone through this. Forgive me, John and Elaine, you've probably seen this before, but I've gone through it again for Kate's benefit to just show you, that underneath these the lessons and these teachings is this theory, and very few people understand this. I have never heard a Christian theologian explain the Holy Trinity in this way. Because they don't understand it themselves, because they're trying to somehow make the Holy Spirit and the Christ real as God. But the truth is, they are just constructs. They are helpful devices within the illusion to help us awaken. When you go back to heaven, in heaven, pure formless awareness of perfect love, you don't need a true self anymore. You don't need Christ, and you don't need the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is a memory of perfect love. Well, when you're in perfect love fully, completely. You don't need to remember it anymore because you're in it. See, so the remembrance then falls away, and the need for a true self that can now perceive correctly falls away because you're just this pure awareness. This is what the Buddha called nirvana, just going into this absolute bliss state, and there's no self. Hence, the Buddha's teaching no self. There is no self here, but very difficult to live with no self in the world, because who's then making the decisions? Who's changing their mind? Who's perceiving? So Yeshua gives us this idea of a true self or Christ self that's going to be able to perceive correctly, to help us to actually live in the world as we awaken and eventually be ready for this complete transcendence into the no self, the nirvana, the samadhi, the Brahman, whatever you want to call it, God, Father, heaven, it's all the same, that all the mystics have spoken of. Does that make sense, Kate?
In a
Particularly?
beautiful synopsis, just giving the real flavor of it and bringing terms together, all meaning the same thing, but it definitely shifts your perception.
Yeah, great. So yeah, that's sort of what I've tried to do is, with these diagrams and translations and just trying to explain that really it's all the same. There's one truth, whatever you call it. I mean, and we sort of, as you advance in your spiritual understanding, you get that, but this just makes it really, really clear. Like, okay, just because it's called nirvana, and Jesus calls it revelation, it doesn't really matter. It's the same state. So, people get dogmatic, and I've seen this in Course community. Oh, no, this isn't Course, this is Buddhism. I'm like, it's all the same stuff. These were two spiritual masters who attained these very high states. They both accessed heaven, nirvana. They just had different names for it because they lived in different cultures and they had different languages, which is, of course, understandable. But it's the same thing. They're teaching the same thing. The Buddhist the Buddhist version of forgiveness is non-attachment, saying, well, just don't get attached, detach from fear and desire. And that's the way to nirvana. That's what the Buddha taught. Well, is that really different from Jesus saying forgiveness is the way to the kingdom of heaven? It's the same thing, just different language, said by a different person at a different time in history. And once you understand that, it's just, it all starts coming together. It's like, okay, well, what I think is really helpful with the Holy Trinity concept is that it's an operating system that helps us to live in the world while we're awakening from the world. And the Buddhist idea of no self, and you're just going to be in nirvana, where's the connection? How do you live? Who is the self then that's perceiving, that's changing your mind? There's a bit of a void there. Whereas in the Christian teaching, the Holy Trinity comes in as that awakening mechanism, as the operating system for your life in order to awaken from the dream. And if you understand it in that context, it makes perfect sense. You don't have any of these theological difficulties of trying to somehow make sense of a triune God, and is God the Father and God the Holy Spirit and God the Son, and try and make them all equal, because they're not. The one is illusory. God, anything that is not pure formless awareness, that is not God itself, is illusory. But the fact is we have to awaken from that. So there has to be a process to help us do that. And that's why we have the idea of the Holy Trinity. As I said, I've never heard this explanation in Christian theology, because they don't understand the idea that it's all an illusion. This is an operating system to guide you out of the illusion, to get you out of the matrix. So these kinds of diagrams and explanations hopefully are helpful. So you kind of, okay, now a lot of this starts to make sense. I start connecting the dots. If you have a Christian background, I don't know what your background is, but if one of your parents is Christian,
no,
then
both
you would have heard these terms. Then it starts to make more sense, and you can kind of go, okay, I see how that relates to the Course, and I see how actually the Course just really explains it all. If you really understand the Course, it explains, all the different teachings, all the religions. It explains Buddhism, it explains traditional Christianity, Catholicism. It explains any other religion you care to look at, because it has the ultimate truth. And at the highest level, all of them point to the same truth. It just does it in a I think, quite a unique way that's very helpful, which is why I study it and teach it, because I think it's probably the most helpful way home. But that's not to say that a Buddhist who's meditating and detaching from the world isn't awakening. They're doing the same thing. They're just calling it different, and they might have some different practices to help them do it, like the Vipassana meditation. So, but the Course even says, this is a universal experience, and ultimately all paths lead to God. So he even says that he's not saying, let's separate see separation based on dogma. He's saying rather see the universal truth in all the teachings and celebrate it and recognize it. That it is in there in all of these religions that have stood the test of time at their highest level. They're all saying the same thing. They all point to this ultimate reality, and they have different ways of explaining it, different ways of getting there. Okay, so enough talking from me. Let's go back to the lesson, but I hope that's useful for you. Right? And, it just shows you one line. We've talked about that line for about 10 minutes now, 15 minutes. So you can kind of really dig into it and unpack it, which is what we try and do in these live sessions. All right. So any questions on the first one? By grace I live, by grace I am released.
Mm-hmm.
Questions, comments?
No, it's fine.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's very exciting. Grace is something to be experienced. It starts to become experiential. That's really, so it points you in the direction of the peak experience that Maslow talked about. And then he asks us to repeat the middle one again. So Elaine, if you can read that in the original alternative.
Elaine has just left the room for the moment.
Oh, has she? Okay. Well, you'll have to deputize.
You want me to read it? Which one?
Yeah, you can read God is but love and therefore so am I, and then the alternative version of that below that.
Do you want me to read there is no cruelty?
No, this one. Just here.
Okay, yeah. God is love and therefore so am I. Or the alternative, my source is only love and therefore so am I.
Yeah, so if you say both of those, God is but love and therefore so am I, and then you say my source is only love and therefore so am I, you might find a subtle shift in the second one. It's like, oh, okay, so maybe that one makes a bit more sense, which is why we do the translations. That's not necessarily the case. Some people prefer the original, but if my source is only love and therefore so am I, well, that makes complete sense because I can't be different from my source, can I? So I must be like my source. If my source is love, then so am I. Okay, logic starts prevailing in our minds. And that's really the idea of these lessons, is that it starts to stick. We start to go, yeah, that actually makes total sense. I can't really argue with that. So if my source is only love, and therefore I must also be. And that's end of, period, end of. There's no discussion on that. The ego will say, well, your source isn't only love. Your source is also separation and anger, fear and hatred, and but that's spurious. That's not true because that's not your true source. That's a false source. If your source is only love, then you must also be love, and that's the end of it. If we could just accept this one simple statement, that would be it.
Yeah.
We'd be awake. We'd be fully enlightened, wouldn't we? If you fully accepted that, you fully knew that and experienced it, it's like, okay, I get it. I am love. It's as simple as that, and there's nothing else. But what tends to happen is we'll start off our day with that, and then something comes in and tells you that you're not love, and you get an experience of cruelty, which is why then he brings in the second lesson. There's no cruelty in God and none in me. So maybe you can read that one as well. Actually,
there is
no,
let's see. There is no cruelty in perfect loving awareness, and none in me. God is but love, and therefore so am I. My source is only love, and therefore so am I. So there's no cruelty in perfect love and awareness, and none in me. So it's either love or fear or cruelty. Yeah.
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 And again, God becomes perfect loving awareness. Well, it makes it very explicit. If it's perfect loving awareness, how can perfect loving awareness be cruel? Wouldn't be perfect loving awareness then, would it? Obviously, cruelty and perfect loving awareness cannot go together. So by translating God into something else like perfect loving awareness, it makes it very obvious and very logical. It's like, well, no, obviously you can't have a God that's cruel. If God is only perfect love, then perfect love doesn't know about cruelty. Cruelty is what? So then, what is cruelty? Cruelty is just a delusion of the mind. It's just a weird belief that actually has no substance in reality. It's got nothing to do with God and perfect loving awareness. So the idea that God is cruel and punishes his children is then delusional. The
Isn't
idea of
it?
sin and guilt then is delusional. It doesn't exist in perfect loving awareness. And now you're starting to undo the foundation of the ego's thought system, aren't you?
When I first started the Course in Miracles, one way to help me was love on one side and fear on the other, and then under love were the fruitages of the spirit, like love, joy. This was the evidence of love. And on the other side was the complete opposite of fear, was hatred, anger, all of those. And it was a very simple contrast. But Jesus used the principle, you'll recognize a tree by the fruitage, and you recognize people by the fruitage of their life, what they do. Are they angry? Are they hateful? Are they cruel? So
Yeah.
that's how I came to terms with that. But people do need simplification, but they've all been tied up in repetition and dogma. Oh.
Yeah, and there's this delusion that God is cruel. The original God of the Old Testament was a pretty cruel, punitive God, and that's Jesus came to change that and say that's just not true. That's not what God is at all. God is only love. So if you look at this, you haven't seen this diagram before. It's well familiar to John and Elaine, but this sort of explains the whole descent into hell that Ken Wapnick goes into in a lot of detail in some of his talks. So I just took it and put it into a diagrammatic form. But it explains, how we got to where we are, seemingly as individuals living this helpless, enervated little life with a lot of limitation and lack and loneliness and suffering and inevitably death going on, and why we believe God is a fearful God. And there's a series of thoughts that occurred that took us down the ladder into hell. And once we start understanding what that process was, we can start reversing it. So underneath the idea that we're a separate self and we're an individual self must be guilt and sin, because in order to exist as a separate self, we believe that we've destroyed God. We've destroyed this pure formless awareness of perfect love. But this teaching is saying, but you can't do that. This is eternal. This is permanent. It's eternal. You cannot destroy that which is eternal. But you can think you can. That's the whole problem. We think we have, and then we behave as though we have. And so now we suffer under the illusion that we have actually destroyed perfect loving awareness, pure formless awareness of perfect love, perfect oneness, to create an individual identity instead. And now we must suffer because of that. The guilt and the sin demand punishment. So now we have fear as a false expectation of punishment appearing real. And we can't handle the guilt and the sin. And so we project it out. And we think that a fearful, wrathful, vengeful God is going to punish us for our sin. And then we project that guilt and sin onto others. And so we accuse and we blame and we attack other people and beings in the world to try and offload our guilt, to try and make us feel better, because our ego tells us if the guilt is theirs and not yours, then you are saved and they are the guilty ones. They're the ones who are going to be punished by God. But this is all delusion. This is not true thinking at all. Jesus is telling us that none of this is true at all. It's all just made up in the mind. It's a massive illusion. And just recognizing the truth that none of this is true and none of this is real is the forgiveness, is the reinterpretation of the ego's dream by the Holy Spirit or moments of perfect love, reminding you in all this madness that really just there's only love, only pure formless awareness of perfect love is real, and none of this means anything. Lesson number one, nothing I see means anything, and lesson number two, I've given everything I see all the meaning it has for me come to mind. So you see how, you know, the teachings of the course, just really, this is an encapsulation, so we refer to it a lot, of the metaphysics of what's behind it. And if you have any doubts and any difficulties, it's always worthwhile referring back to the diagram, saying, okay, so what am I not seeing here? What am I not understanding? Because this shows us the whole process of the ego's development, how we got into the pickle that we think we're in, but also the way home. So, well, the blue arrows are really the reinterpretation of all of these delusions. And just the Holy Spirit just says, this isn't true. You're just dreaming. This is all made up. None of this is true. So you might be seeing the effects of sin and guilt. Someone might be behaving in a cruel way and trying to hurt you or others. And this happens all the time. But don't perceive it as real, because it's not. It's just a delusion. And then you correct your mind and you return your mind back into this state of pure formless awareness, in spite of all these illusions. And that's the process of forgiveness. That's how we awaken. To climb back up the ladder, we came down back into this awareness, ultimately, where we just unite with this awareness and become perfectly one with this awareness, which is full enlightenment or awakening. So once you understand, you know, how it all works, it's pretty simple. It's rocket science, and it's quite, the answer becomes quite simple.
Yeah. What I was thinking of the semantics of words and so on, like you mentioned, source, and the way I would understand is another word for energy of the spirit within us. And we're having that more and more and more, and we're getting more enlightenment about it. But just how it all develops.
Well, I use the term awareness.
Yeah.
You know, another term. So it's this awareness of perfect love, pure formless awareness of perfect love. That's the source. It's the foundation. You can't go beyond that. There's no other awareness beyond that. The point is, when you've stripped everything else away and you get to the very foundation of your awareness, that's all there is. That's God. That's the end of the journey. That's you can't go beyond that. There's no more fundamental awareness than that. That's when you've arrived home. So from a psychological point of view, it's just going back to your original awareness and just letting go of all the other awareness that you've made up that covers that over, which is the veil of illusion. And going back to your original awareness, which is still there, but it's been covered over by all of this that we've made up, the ego, all the ideas of the ego, a thought system, as Yeshua calls it. This is just a thought system, which is based on one tiny mad idea that you can actually be separate from your own awareness, which is a ridiculous idea. Well, if that's my awareness, then how can I be separate from my awareness if that's what I am? It's a deluded idea, but that's what the ego is. And so once we start realizing, you know, the extent of the delusion, we can correct it, and we can start making these shifts in our perception to restore our mind to this original awareness, step by step, moment by moment, experience by experience.
It's marvelous.
Which is really, you know, amazing that we have this knowledge. And I just feel really grateful that this knowledge has been given to us in the course, and it just needs to be unpacked a bit. You know, it's all in there. This diagram not saying anything the course doesn't say. It's just summarized into a diagrammatic form that's maybe a bit more understandable. It puts it all together instead of it being, you know, okay, there's a bit in this chapter and a bit in this chapter and a lesson. It's like, okay, can I just summarize and get the essence of it in a form that's understandable? That's, you know, why we do the diagrams, and they're just learning aids, really, to help us understand. And we, you know, if we stick around the community, we refer to this often. If ever there's a question, I go, okay, let's go back to this and have a look. And usually that question can be answered by just referring to a framework like this and going, okay, well, let's understand it in context. You know, where's the question coming from? At what level are we at? And you know, if we understand where the question arose, then the answer becomes obvious. And you can solve the problem through this process of reinterpreting or forgiving. Yeah, so all good stuff, really. I really you know, love the teachings and these tools, which have been guided largely. You know, it's guided to some I've created myself, others other people have created, but they're all just there to help us in this process of awakening to who we really are, which is our only purpose here.
But I was thinking
Okay,
about,
so,
yeah, it is
yeah.
absolutely beautiful. I'm following it very, very clearly. Recently, they had
Right.
thought about the Pope, thinking of Catholic Church, thinking of the indulgence and everything else, teaching in Latin in, say, for anywhere in the UK. That's not the language of people. General education has risen, and also, quote, theological. But what I loved, and I heard the American is a talk show host, was saying that all religion is a thought system and it's not ours. And that gave birth to traditions and everything else, teachings and all. I would feel angry that we've been wrongly taught, but they didn't know any differently.
Yes,
Yeah,
from Carl Jung.
yeah.
Religion is a defense against the experience of God.
That's perfect.
Carl Jung. Yeah.
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 But
So-
also talking about knowledge and language, and you mentioned about the printing press and giving access to the Bible and William Tyndale, because the ploughman didn't have that. But it's a gradual increase. But they didn't know what they didn't know, and they believed what they were taught by authority figures, and it was a control mechanism. It was a business. It was what we see today worldwide.
Yeah, but with education comes empowerment, because you can learn, you can read for yourself, and you can understand for yourself. Say, well, if it says this in scripture, then why are we being charged indulgences? If it's by grace that you've been saved,
I know.
and it's only through faith, then why all this, all of this paraphernalia that the Catholic Church was doing, the indulgences and the confession rituals, and because it's not by works you're saved, it's by grace. It will happen because that's the gift of God to you, and you are worthy of that just because of who you are. So really, it strips away all of that egoic structure, collapses it, and says you just are the Son of God that you are. You are the extension of God, or perfect love that you are. Nothing you can do really matters. Nothing you can do will save you. The paradox of it is that you can do spiritual practice that helps you to awaken to this, but it's still true whether you're awakened or completely fast asleep to it. You are still saved. It doesn't matter whether you're aware of that or not. That's what Paul was trying to say. The grace is always there. You just got to be willing to accept it and say, yeah, I accept that I am saved, that the grace is there, and I'm just going to stop all the self-condemnation and get off the track of sin and guilt, because it's really not helpful. It's not.
But do you know what strikes me, Jono and John? 1975, Helen Shorten, 7 years, and so on. If I look back, all of the self-development industry and everything else is built around that, and they all take different words and explanations, and they give a little bit. But I've loved having the overview by studying and reading, knowing what we know. Do you get what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
but the whole of the self-development one is talking about God and source and even energy and energetics, and it's evolving even more. But yes, I like to read things for myself.
The course gives you a really complete understanding. When I just before the course came to me, I was like, okay, I've done a lot of reading, a lot of studying of different paths, and I'm still missing something. And I just said, I want to know the truth. Just give it to me, like straight. I just want to know what is the truth about this world, about who I am, all of it. I just wanted to know, that's my prayer, I suppose, of the heart. So just give me the truth. And then very shortly after that, the course came into my life. I was like, okay. And I started reading, and I recognized the truth. I didn't fully understand it. I was like, I could see there's something deeper here. There's something really, really profound, and I really want to understand this. And so began a nearly 20-year journey of just studying it, saying, I really, I need to work with this and be patient with it, and go through this process of awakening to the truth. because the truth's in the book, but it's not going to help you very much just sitting on the pages. It's got to come into your mind and in your heart and awaken you to the experience of it. Otherwise, it's pointless. And that's what the course does, in my view, better than any other teaching or path. And that is maybe a biased view. And there's other teachers and paths will say, oh, but ours is as good or better. Maybe so. I can't comment because I haven't followed every path, but I have looked into most of them, at least looked at them, and I've gone, well, this makes it gives you the complete picture. This diagram that I've just shared with you. Where are we? Go back to that. I've never seen this anywhere else. There's no other teaching that I've come across that gives you this comprehensive explanation of the origin of the ego, of the world, of the universe. Well, why did it all happen? Why did the Big Bang happen? Science tells us there was this massive Big Bang 15 odd billion years ago, and that created the physical universe. Well, where did that come from? Why did that happen? They can't answer that. At time t equals 0, by their own admission, they are absolutely clueless. All their models fall apart because t equals 0 is eternity. So, all of the models and the ways of the ego just collapse into this eternal pure formless awareness of perfect love. But this explains it. It says there must have been something pre-existing, that idea of separation that preceded the Big Bang. That didn't just come out of nowhere. It came because the mind just had this tiny mad idea that it didn't want to be what it was, and it split off from it. But there was this pre-existing awareness, which is God. Otherwise, it could never have come. And that's, if you really look at it, it's fairly obvious. There must have been something. The Big Bang didn't just come from nowhere. Science, they get very twitchy at this because they're like, well, it just arose. Well, how did it arise? Why did it arise? No, well, we don't go there. We don't even talk about that. Well, hang on, maybe we should. Because maybe that's actually the whole point, is to go beyond that. As Rupert Sheldrake says, he says, in his critique of scientific materialism, he says, well, science gives you this one free miracle. All matter and energy is created from nowhere in a flash. And then that's it. Okay, now we just one free miracle. It's happened. We don't know why it's happened. We're not going to try and explain why it happened. Let's just take it from here, and now we'll explain how it all unfolds. And that's what science has done. Explain the how, but not the why. And that's the most important question. Well, why did it happen? And that is not a question a scientist can answer. It's because it's a philosophical question. You have to go into the mind and into philosophy. So, okay, so we have to think about it now because there's no proof. Now we're in the domain of philosophy. So their qualifications are no more helpful than anyone else's in that domain. It's just purely philosophical thinking and understanding that's going to get you there. If you get consumed with the how, you're just never going to get it. I listened to a lecture by a guy at Cambridge, one of the famous lecture halls, very erudite quantum physicist, and he's talking about all quantum mechanics and how it's all happened and the standard model and how they're seeking a grand unified theory, but he says one thing in that lecture which I just paused and went, whoa, hang on, you just kind of skipped over the truth there. He said, at time t equals 0, we have no idea about anything. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially we have no clue, and then just went immediately on to the next sentence, right? So he just skipped over the truth there. As Winston Churchill said, men stumble over the truth occasionally, but most pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing had ever happened. That's exactly what he did. Hang on, you just stumbled over the most profound truth, and you didn't even realize it, and you just went on back into the dream world, back into, now we're going to explain how it all happened and the standard model, and we're going to get better explaining an illusion. That's what he's saying. And the Course is saying that's never going to work. You're never going to wake up that way. You just have to go to the original truth and realize that everything subsequent is a delusion, and that at time t equals 0 is reality, and everything after that is delusion and needs to be undone in your mind. That's how you get out of the matrix. That's how you awaken. But if you spent your life studying these scientific models, it's very difficult for someone, even though he's intelligent, to go, hang on, maybe everything I've been studying is a delusion. It's a very difficult letting go process for anyone to go through, which is why we need spiritual practices that the Course gives us, because it isn't easy to unbind our mind. In fact, religion, religare, means to tie or bind together. We bound to this thought system, and our minds are so trapped in it, it's very difficult to awaken from.
What I love is getting out of the mind, getting out of the ego, and into spirit in the heart within. And a lot of people are wakening up to the fact that God is within us in ways. We are God because we're made in God's image, and we have all the qualities that God has. But the idea of co-creating and so on, there's more and more talk about that, which is good in a way because it opens up the topics to talk about the Course in Miracles. But we've come a long way. There is a celestial acceleration, and yeah. But we all hate lies, and the truth resonates. The idea that all we want is the truth. That's what justice is supposed to be. All we want is the whole legal system, and everything is based on truth. And it is just a real freedom, and I cherish freedom. I really, really do. Sometimes I take it for granted, and the frustration, but it is just the freedom of thought. We can think for ourselves. We've got a mind and a body, and we've got a heart and a soul. And it's getting all these words and getting the finer shades of meaning and realizing, yeah, this is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. And that's the whole process. So let's go back to the lesson, have a look at it. Any other thoughts or comments or questions on it? Otherwise, maybe we can do a meditation on it. I know, did you say, Elaine and Kate, you wanted to go at 9?
Yes,
so maybe we can just do a meditation. And John, if you want to continue, I'm happy to do some text with you.
Okay.
All right. So should we do that? Let's do a say 15 minutes on the lesson.
Yeah,
So just a short lesson, and then we'll go into the text. If two of you want to leave, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so just make yourself comfortable. Put your phone on mute or silent. So sitting comfortably in your favorite meditation posture. Feet shoulder width apart. Back straight. Cup your hands in your lap. Close your eyes. And just start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. Breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pausing at the top of the inhale. Check in, scan your mind. Just notice any thoughts, any emotions, any feelings. Just kind of feel into where you're at. Maybe it's really clear. Just nice, peaceful awareness. If there's anything that's not quite peaceful, remind yourself of the truth of today's key idea that sandwiches these lessons we're studying, that God is only love. Or if you prefer, my source is only love. And therefore so am I. So I think I have to say either God is but love and therefore so am I, or my source is only love and therefore so am I. Breathe in again. Have a sense of breathing this source in, this source of infinite, eternal, perfect love is within you now. So you must be the same as that source. There really is no difference or separation. My source is only love, and therefore so am I. And by grace I live. By grace I am released. Breathe in on that again. Grace is love. Grace is spirit. Grace is life. Grace is the essence of who we are. That gives us life. As the lesson saying, by grace I live. By grace I am released from all of my delusions. So as you exhale, just have a sense of releasing yourself from all the delusions of your mind. Any of those negative thoughts maybe you're aware of when we did a check-in. So any fear, minor irritation, ranging to anger, to jealousy, guilt, sin, fear, attack thoughts, sadness, disappointment, feeling abandoned, rejected, and so on and so on. All of this is what grace releases you from. So just feel that release as you exhale. Imagine all of this has been blown out like a dark cloud or black smoke out of your mouth. Just letting it all go into the nothingness that it really is. Just letting the last remaining air out. It's going, going, gone. Pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. And rest in this grace. Feel the release. Just breathing in and out through your nose. Sinking into the grace that's given you. Feel it. Drop your attention into your heart center. So feel it in the heart, in the body. Relax into it. Remind yourself in this grace that it's given to you by love. God is only love, and therefore so are you. So say, God is only love, and therefore so am I. Or if you prefer, my source is only love, and therefore so am I. Breathe in again on the truth of that. Breathing into this loving awareness. Into every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, and every fiber of your being is in loving awareness. And just rest in the beautiful peace and bliss of this. And in this perfect loving awareness, there is no cruelty. Breathing in again, finding yourself, there is no cruelty in God, and so there's none in me. It's the kind of opposite view of God is only love, and therefore so am I. Then if that's true, then there can be no cruelty in God, because God is only love, and cruelty and love don't go together. So if you prefer, say there is no cruelty in perfect loving awareness, and none in me, because I am perfect loving awareness. Perfect loving awareness doesn't know like cruelty. cruelty and perfect loving awareness are opposite. They cannot reconcile, they cannot coincide. They are separate awarenesses. The one is true and the one is not. And you must choose which one you want to be true. If you want cruelty to be true, then you will perceive the world as a very cruel, unfair, unkind, harsh, attacking, condemning place, and ultimately a place where you're going to suffer and die. It's as simple as that. You perceive that only perfect loving awareness is true, then the world of cruelty just fades away and you just start letting it go and start seeing beyond it to the perfect loving awareness that does lie beyond it in your own mind and in the minds and hearts of every human being, and in fact every sentient being has this awareness, otherwise they would have no life. One of the previous review lessons was there was one life, and that I share with God. It's only just one life, this one awareness. And that's all there really is. There's nothing else. So just meditate on this, pause, breathing in and out through your nose, and sink into this loving awareness. It's totally beyond any thoughts of cruelty, any attack thoughts, just a pure awareness. It's very peaceful, loving, joyful, blissful in the moment. Right here, right now, you can sink into those feelings. So just allow yourself to do that. Remind yourself one more time that God is only love. My source is only love, and therefore so am I. Say to yourself, I am this perfect love. I am this perfect loving awareness. It's beyond cruelty, in and through which grace is given to me, and I am saved. I am released from all of my illusions. Say the lessons one more time. Source is only love, and therefore so am I. By grace I live, by grace I am released. My source is only love, and therefore so am I. There is no cruelty in perfect loving awareness, and none in me. And my source is only love, and therefore so am I. And then just rest in this awareness. No more words are necessary. Just give yourself over to pure experience of this awareness, of this loving source that's within you for the next couple of minutes of deep silence. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. Just breathe, relax, and be still. Surrender into the moment. Watching your breath, breathing in and out through your nose. The breath just breathe you. Just have a subtle awareness of it. Sinking inwards, going deeper and deeper with each breath. Any thoughts come up, seem to deny this perfect loving awareness. Remind yourself that there is no cruelty in this perfect loving awareness, and so none in me. And so by grace, I live. By grace, I'm released from these thoughts. And then just breathe in the grace into every pore, every cell, every muscle, your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is resting in the grace of God or love, and immerse yourself in this grace, in this experience. Sinking inwards, going deeper and deeper with each breath into this grace, into this pure, formless awareness of perfect love, which words are not necessary, so I won't speak, just leave you to the silent experience of this grace for a couple of minutes. Just gently coming back from this deep connected state of grace and bring your awareness back into the world through the body and the breath and the senses. So on the count of 3, you can open your eyes. 1, just breathing in. You notice how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the subtle flow of air into the nostrils. And you pause at the top of the inhale. Smile. Again, scan your mind. If you notice any thoughts that are not loving, just remind yourself that there is no cruelty in God or perfect loving awareness, and so there's none in me. And let them go. By grace, I live. By grace, I'm released. Remind yourself of that as you exhale, blow these out. A dark cloud or black smoke out of your mouth. It's leaving you, going, gone. Never to come again. Permanently deleted. So exhale, notice how the air flows out. Mouth, chest, and the stomach suck back in. Notice the energy subsiding back down into the front channel of your body, into rest in your lower stomach and your groin. And just rest in this beautiful, peaceful, calm state. A few moments in the gap between breaths, the gap in your mind, the access to grace in the moment is always there. So experience that for yourself. Time just to experience this. Breathing in again, noticing as you breathe in, what you're smelling, maybe what you're tasting, because smell and taste are connected. Touching, subtle breeze on your skin perhaps, what you're feeling, what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Touching and finally what you're seeing. So on the count of 3, just open your eyes, look around, take a moment. Just look around. And some environment around you, the room, same familiar objects, people, there's people with you. But in this very clear, aware state. Notice that there's no judgment, there's no need to label or judge or interpret anything. It's just a field of clear awareness. It's very peaceful. Not judging anything, not, in other words, making it real. You're still rooted in this deeper awareness, perfect loving awareness. So they call it in our translated language. Or God, still rooted in this. Even as you go about your business in the world, still in the domain of sense perceptions, seeing things, feeling, touching, tasting, hearing, smelling, interacting with people, communicating. You're doing it from the state of perfect loving awareness, from the state of love rather than fear. That makes all the difference. So set your intention to stay in this awareness, to let this awareness express in and through you for the rest of the evening. You can use today's lesson to top you up. If you need to remind yourself, just remind yourself of one or more of the lessons. God is only love and therefore so am I. Or my source is only love and therefore so am I. If it's something that you tend to believe in cruelty, then the second lesson, there's no cruelty in perfect God or perfect loving awareness, and none in me might help. It's something you need to let go of. By grace I live, and by grace I'm released. Can really help. And that should keep you connected to this state, to this loving awareness. So if you find yourself getting disconnected, just pause and remind yourself of these ideas to reconnect you. That's why they're there. That's what the practice is about. Reconnect you to grace, to your source, ultimately awaken fully to that source, into the domain of pure forms, awareness of perfect love. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the meditation and the first part of the session. So now's a good time, Elaine and Kate, if you need to leave.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for staying. And been nearly 3 hours actually, so really good session. Kate, I hope I'll see you again. If you'd like to join us on that file I mentioned, all I need is your email address and your phone number. You need to download Telegram, and I can add you to the mailing list and to the Telegram group. You can join for 3 weeks, and then we can talk about further membership if you would like that. If not, no pressure. It's up to you. So have a think about it. I've told you essentially what I had a taste of it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to chat to you one-on-one if you'd like that, or join another session next week. Just I guess ask for guidance. You'll be told what to do, won't you? So
yeah,
whatever it is, just let me know. Elaine's got all my details, so Elaine, please share those.
Just to say thank you so much. It has been really interesting. An observation, I'm used to the meditation at the beginning of A Course in Miracles study, and then do a bit. Pardon?
Everybody's got their own sort of way.
But also, I see the reason why you do it. My observation, it is a bit long to fit in with everyday life when dealing with the very real challenges. But it was absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I hope you join us again. We do these sessions, as I said, at the moment, once or twice a week, generally evening. So you can hopefully fit it in, and if you can only join for an hour or two, that's fine. John joins in the mid session, so it's fine. So yeah, let me know if you'd like to continue or not. Have a chat to Elaine, and she's got my.
We will. It's been a very good evening. Thank you so.
Good. Well, thank you for joining. It's great to have someone new. Thank you for your input, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night. Good night, John.
Good
Namaste. Namaste.
Good night, Elaine. Cheers,
Good
Kate.
night.
Good night, everybody.
Oh, good night.
Come.
All right, so it's meditation done. How you doing, John? Shall we just wouldn't mind a quick break? I've been sitting for about 3 hours. So
Yeah, sure.
do you want to carry on with some text then?
Well, I'd prefer it if we could pack up about 10 o'clock.
Okay, so it gives us about 40 minutes. So we
yeah.
can do 45 minutes of text, whether we'll finish it or not. Let's just see how long it is. It's called Reason versus Madness, section 6 of chapter 21. And 7, 8, 9. It's quite a long one. So yeah, 11 paragraphs. We probably won't get through it all, but let's see how we do.
Okay.
Maybe we just do the alternative version. So just give me 2 minutes. I'm just gonna
I'll
make
make
a little comfort
I'll
break.
make myself something as well.
Yeah, make some tea or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll see you at the past.
Yep.
All right. How are you, John? Sorry, it was slightly longer than 5 minutes, but a much needed break. Okay, shall we go for it then? Let's do text for today. So this section is called Reason versus Madness. It is section 6 of chapter 21, if you want to follow on in your book. Share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yep. Yep.
So reason versus madness. Just another way of framing ego versus spirit. But all these different, what I like about the way he does it in the text, particularly, is he gives us these very different perspectives. Not very different, but different perspectives.
Yeah.
So perspective is, okay, let's talk about reason and what reason does versus insanity and madness. And it frames the duality of spirit versus ego in a different way and gives you maybe a deeper understanding of it. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so given we've only got 40 minutes, shall we just crack on with the alternative then? You want to read that?
Yeah.
Reason cannot perceive.
Reason cannot perceive sin, but can perceive errors and leads to their correction. It does not value them, but only their correction. Reason will also tell me that when I think I sin, I am really calling for help. So it's an interesting sentence, that, isn't it? I find that reason will also tell me that when I think I sin, I am really calling for help.
It's a cry for love.
Yes.
And that's the reason of the Holy Spirit.
When I think I sin, when I think I am doing something wrong, I am actually calling for help.
Yeah. That's just everyone else, which is important to realize. So sin is behind all unconscious behavior. Someone is behaving in an unkind, cruel way, it's because they believe in sin and they're really calling for help. What they really need is your forgiveness, which is unconditional love rather than judgment and condemnation. That's not always easy to do, is it? So people can behave in very, very difficult ways. But internally we can make this correction. That's what he's saying. Okay, and then he goes on. Yet if I will
not accept the help I call for, yet if I will not accept the help I call for, I will not believe that it is mine to give. Therefore, I will not give it, so maintaining the belief in separation. For uncorrected error of any kind deceives me about the power that is in me to make correction. If it can correct and I allow it not to do so, I deny it to myself and my companion. And if my companion shares this same belief in separation, we both will think that we are damned. I could spare my comparison with myself this. I could spare myself, my companion and myself this. The reason does not clear the way for correction in me alone. Yeah.
Okay, so what's he saying in that one?
He's saying that, well, first of all, he's saying that whenever we sin, actually we are making expression of distress, of how we are disorientated, how we've lost ourselves, and as such we are calling for help.
Yeah.
And
There is
when
a reasoning process that allows you to see that. You know, if you look beyond the ego, so, okay, so if someone's behaving badly, or if I'm behaving badly, it's a cry for love. It's because they're not feeling connected to love. And then this is what happens. You know, the behavioral results of a lack of love are evident to see all over the world in people's behavior. But all of it is just saying, well, it's a cry for love. So this is a higher level of reason. If you remember in I think it's pertinent, so I'm going to show you this in David Hawkins's scale of map of consciousness, where reason sits.
oh yeah, yeah.
19. Reason sits up here at 400, just below love. So this is kind of saying, well, yes, I need to have reason in order to love. The understanding of reason, the ability to understand abstract concepts, the wisdom we talked about earlier, giving life true meaning. This is all reason. This is what he's talking about, which is a precursor to love. If you can't reason in this way, you're not going to be able to unconditionally love. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on number one? Should we go to number two then?
Yep. Correction cannot be accepted or refused by me without my companion. Sin maintains it can. Yet reason tells me that I cannot perceive my companion or myself as sinful and still perceive the other incorrect. And still perceive the other innocent. Who perceives themselves as guilty and perceives an innocent world? And who can perceive a sinful world and look upon themselves apart from it? Sin maintains my companion, and I must be separate. Only reason tells me that this must be wrong. If my companions and I are joined, how can it be that I have private thoughts? And how can thoughts that enter into what only seems like mine alone have no effect at all on what is mine? If minds are joined, private thoughts are impossible. So he's saying here that it's impossible for me to forgive only myself. It's impossible for me to achieve forgiveness on my own. Because I will be having an effect on others.
Yeah. Because my mind is not separate from anyone else's. My thoughts automatically, without my even willing them to, they will automatically affect everyone.
Yeah.
As minds are joined. So private thoughts are really impossible. The illusion is that we have private thoughts. I'm in my own private mind. I'm thinking my private thoughts. No one else knows. But actually, there's only one mind, so that can't be true. it just seems to be true from our limited perspective. If you really understood there's no private thoughts, and there's only one mind, you would be a lot more vigilant of your thoughts, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, oh, everyone's knowing everything all the time. Whatever I think, that's going into the collective. So it's quite a good way of reminding yourself to keep your thoughts clean, because they're affecting everyone all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so happy with number 2?
Yeah.
Go to number 3 then.
No one can think only for themselves. As pure formless awareness of perfect love thinks with its extension. Only if both were in bodies could this not be true. Nor could one mind think only for itself unless the body were the mind. For only bodies can be separate and therefore unreal. The home of madness cannot be the home of reason. Yet it is easy to leave the home of madness if I perceive reason. I do not leave insanity by going somewhere else. I leave it simply by accepting reason where madness was. Madness and reason perceive the same things, but it is certain that they will always perceive them differently.
So what's he saying there?
Well, he's saying rather like the last paragraph, actually, that our minds are joined and we can't see innocence without having an effect on others, and only bodies could see themselves as separate.
Yeah. So if we were a body, then only then could separation be true. But we're not bodies; we are minds. The body is the insanity. So this is the way the Course differs from many spiritual teachings. A lot of teachings say, well, it's mind, body, and spirit, mind, soul, and it's all part of this sort of triune reality. And the Course says, no, you can't be a mind and a body. That's totally impossible. The delusion is that you're a body, but that's the delusion. That's part of the illusion. That's insanity. Because if you're a body, you must be separate, and you must be mortal and doomed to suffer and die. So this is the body is the projection of our insane wish to be a separate self, which is why it's not immortal, it's not eternal, which is why it gets old, it suffers, it gets sick, it dies, because it's a projection of a delusion. What else could you expect from that? So madness and reason are now synonyms for spirit and ego, right? Madness is the ego, spirit is reason. And they will perceive the same things. They perceive the body, they perceive the world, but he's saying it's certain they will always perceive them differently.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit will never perceive the world in the same way as the ego will. And that's where the split comes in. And you'll never reconcile it. Try as you might. Okay, happy with number 3? Let's go to number 4. Madness is an attack on reason.
Madness is an attack on reason that drives it out of mind and takes its place. Reason does not attack, but takes the place of madness quietly, replacing madness if the insane choose to listen to it. Only the insane do not know their own awareness, for they believe they see the body, then let their madness tell them it is real. Reason is incapable of this, and if I try to defend the body against my reason, I will not understand the body or myself. So he's saying here really that madness is an attack on reason. It's trying to drive it out, trying to be in charge. And only the insane listen to it. Because if they didn't listen to it and chose reason, they would understand more deeply that the body is superficial. Not really, and not them.
Yeah, so our true reason, this is not the reason of the world. Most people would say you're insane. You say I'm not a body. Body doesn't really exist. Most people go, you've lost the plot. You're going insane. Because the reason of the world is insanity. Reasoning of the world is insanity. That's what he's saying. Only the reasoning of your true awareness tells you the truth beyond the illusion. Which just they can't be reconciled. I think that's always, that's really the key message of the course. You can't reconcile these two voices and these two thought systems and these two perceptions. They are opposite, and you have to choose between them.
Yeah.
Okay, moving swiftly on then, if you're happy to do that, to number 5.
The body does not separate me from my companions. And if I think it does, I am insane. But madness has a purpose and believes it also has the means to make its purpose real. I must be insane to perceive the body as a barrier between what reason tells me must be joined. Nor could I perceive it so if I heard the voice of reason. What can there be that stands between what is continuous? And if there is nothing in between, how can what enters part be kept away from other parts? Reason tells me this. Yet if it is so, let me consider what I must recognize. So he's saying here that the body in itself doesn't cause separation. It's only when we think it does. But madness does believe the body is creating separation, is creation. And if we are aligned with reason, then we will not see that.
Yeah, essentially, it's very clearly saying to believe you're a body is insane.
Yeah.
But that's the universal belief of the world, which means everyone here is insane. You're living in the insane asylum. And obviously the people in the insane asylum who question that are seen as insane. That's how it works. You're seen as insane. If you say I'm not a body and I'm free, I'm just spirit, a lot of people go, what are you talking about? It's just weird stuff. We're kind of losing the plot. You're one of those, fruit of the loon, mad, when in fact the belief that you're a body, which is the belief of the world, is totally insane. But that has become the default belief of the ego and therefore of our society, which almost everyone buys into. There's very few people. If you did a random survey, you said to people on the street, are you a body? Most people would say, well, what are you talking about? I don't really, you might get a few. So, oh, actually, no, I'm spirit, or I'm spirit and body, I'm mind and body, I'm soul and body. There might be a few of those. There's very few people say I'm not a body at all.
Yeah.
Illusion. And this is where the course gets difficult for people because it's so radical. Saying, well, you can't go to heaven with the body, so just let it go. That's a delusion. You're not a body, you never were a body. The body and all of its activities, the body living in this world of illusion and separation is just an illusion. It was never a reality. So let it all go and return your mind to its true awareness. That's your only hope. There's no hope in the body. The body is obviously going to age and suffer and eventually die. So forget that. That's never going to work. Okay. Happy to go on. Number 6, we're making good time.
Yep.
I'll actually get through all 11 if we carry on like
Yeah.
this.
If I choose sin instead of healing, I condemn the extension of perfect love to what can never be corrected. Through my choice, I tell myself that I am damned and separate from my true self and my source forever, without a hope of safe return. I teach myself this, and I will learn exactly what I taught from this little self. For I can teach myself only that I am as I want myself to be. And what I choose to be is just my choice, me. Yet I will not think this is fearful. That I am my true self is a fact, not an interpretation. How can a fact be fearful unless it disagrees with what I value more than truth? Reason will tell me that this fact is my release. So it's saying here that if I choose madness, I condemn the extension of perfect love, and I myself am damned. But teach myself that I am truly aligned with the Spirit, and that's where I will begin to teach myself who I really am.
Yeah, which is the whole point of the journey.
Yeah.
Is to learn who you are. So this is a fact, not an interpretation. We are this. And yet we doubt it. That's the insanity of it all. You are this without a question, and yet you question it.
Yeah.
You doubt it. Because we've taught ourselves to believe that we're something that we're not. So well that we now put ourselves in body. I mean, it's a complete, when you realize the scale of it, you're going, oh my God, that's just totally insane.
Yeah.
Which it is. We've taken ourselves out of mind. We were just pure awareness in mind and only mind, and then this tiny mad idea has split our mind and caused us to now come down the ladder of separation and into bodies. And now we're trying to figure out what the hell happened.
Yeah.
And it's difficult because we've forgotten how we did this all. You come in a body, born into a body, and you think that the source of your being is your parents. Well, your parents had sex one night, and then you appear 9 months later, and that's why you're here, and you're a body, and your cause is your parents. It's just not true, but that's the delusion of the ego. So it's very profound stuff, all of this. If you read this for the first time, you'd be like, oh, wow, this is another level of reason, isn't it? It's not normal reason. When he's presenting the case that what we think is reason and reasonable in this world is actually insanity. And true reason lies beyond any of these ideas. Okay.
Yeah.
One, number 7.
Yeah. Neither my companions nor myself can be attacked alone, but neither can accept a correction instead without others being blessed by it and healed of pain. Reason, like love, wants to reassure rather than frighten me. The power to heal the extension of perfect love is given to me because my companions must be one with me. I am responsible for how I perceive them. And reason tells me that I can change the whole mind of the extension which is one with me in just one wholly aware moment. And any wholly aware moment serves to bring complete correction of their errors and make them whole. I perceive the extension's whole awakening as complete with mine in the wholly aware moment that I choose to let myself be here. Reason will help me to understand that this is so. For reason, as kind as the purpose for which it is the means, leads steadily away from madness toward the golden truth. And here I will let go of the burden of denying truth. This is the burden that is terrible and not the truth. So it's saying here, again, actually, that when we attack, we never attack. We attack the whole sonship. And when we accept a correction, we accept it on behalf of the sonship.
Yeah, because it's only one mind. So this is extending through the whole mind.
Yeah.
Always, just by default. By thinking a thought, it's automatically extending. You can't help that because you're part of the one mind. So it's happening whether you like it or not. You may as well then think right-minded thoughts and think with reason rather than insanely. Reason leads steadily away from madness toward the goal of truth, and here I will let go of the burden of denying truth. This is the burden that is terrible and not the truth. So what he's saying is, if you want to lie to yourself and defend that lie, it's a terrible burden to carry, because you're deceiving yourself, and then you won't let it go and be open to correction on that. That will ultimately kill people if you do that. That ultimately leads to death. If you do that, we know repression and suppression lead to all kinds of diseases. Cancer, you could argue cancer is always a disease of repression. You've repressed your anger and your feelings, and then it comes out in the body as cancer.
Yeah.
Which then is life-threatening because your thoughts were damaging. Your thoughts were not thoughts of life, but of death. Okay. Go on to number 8 then.
My awakening is the knowledge that my companions and I are joined, which is the gift of pure formless awareness, not the gift of fear. Does the state of pure formless awareness seem to be a burden to me? In madness, yes. And yet what my madness perceives must be dispelled by reason. Reason assures me that the state of pure formless awareness is what I want, and all I want. So I choose to listen to the remembrance of perfect love, which speaks with reason and brings my reason into line with its. I am willing to let reason be the means by which the remembrance of perfect love instructs me how to have insanity behind, how to leave insanity behind. I will not hide behind insanity in order to escape from reason. What madness tries to conceal, the remembrance of perfect love still holds out for everyone to perceive gladly. So it's saying here that when I really take on board that my companions and I are joined, we are one, it will lift us beyond madness.
Yeah, no, it's another way of framing the same thing throughout the course. Reason Reason is the Holy Spirit's thought system, and madness is the ego's. So we need to be willing to let this, higher reason come in and dispel it. It's nothing new, but he just uses a different terms, doesn't he? He's talking about reason and madness here instead of Holy Spirit and ego. But it's the he does mention the Holy Spirit there in the original, but it's getting us to see it from a different perspective. The dichotomy and the split, and this goes on throughout the course. You see he's contrasting ego with Holy Spirit throughout the course and saying, the only resolution is to choose. That's the only way out of the split. Choose correctly, choose right-mindedly. Okay, happy to go to number 9.
Yep. I am my companion's awakener. My companion is mine. Reason speaks happily indeed of this. This gracious plan was given love by love. And what love plans is like itself in this, being united. It wants me to learn what I must be. And being one with it, I must be able to extend what it has given and still gives. So I spend just a moment in the glad acceptance of what is given me to give my companion, and learn with my companion what has been given to both of us. Give is no more blessed than to receive, but neither is it less. So is continuing that we can contribute to our companion's awakening by awakening ourselves. It will overflow.
Because there's only one mind.
Because there's only one mind. Yeah.
So it must overflow.
Yeah.
Spend just a moment in the glad acceptance of what is given to me to give my companions. And learn with my companions what has been given. Let's just make it, instead of one, given to all of us. So there's 2 themes in the course. It's awakening yourself, and then there's this constant, he brings in so often your companions, and he says, and this then will extend to your companions through you.
Yeah.
So it's to get it yourself and then extend it to them, to share the love and awaken everyone, which is the at-one-ment plan. To give is no more blessed than to receive, but neither is it less.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting qualification. To give is no more blessed than to receive, right? Giving and receiving are 2 sides of the same coin. There's no giving if there's no receiving. There's no point giving if there's no receiver. And if you won't receive a gift, then it's not given. But neither is it less. So to give is no less blessed than to receive. In other words, as you give, so you receive. You are as blessed when you give the gifts as when you actually receive them. And so we learn that it's one gift, it's one awareness that you're giving and receiving. It's the same thing. Whether you give it or receive it doesn't actually matter. And so giving and receiving are constructs in the duality that collapse eventually into the oneness of pure awareness. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Let's go to number 10 then. Penultimate paragraph.
The extension of perfect love is always blessed as one. And as my gratitude goes out to my companion who blessed me, reason will tell me that I cannot separate myself from blessing. The gratitude my companion offers me reminds me of the thanks my source gives me for completing its extension. And here alone does reason tell me that I can understand what I must be. My source is as close to me as my companion is. Yet what is there that could be nearer to me than myself is? So it's once again saying that when we forgive, then we are helping the whole sonship towards peace.
Yeah. My gratitude goes to companions who bless me. Reason will tell me I cannot separate myself from blessing. So as I give it, I receive it. And that is how it works. The more you give, the more you feel abundant. You can't feel abundant if you're not generous. That's exactly how it actually does work. Gratitude my companions offer me reminds me, thanks my source gives me for completing its extension. Here alone, does reason tell me that I can understand what I must be. My source is close to me as my companions. Companions are. And what is there that could be nearer to me than myself is? So because we share the same self, the same awareness, we're all one. They're actually me, I'm them. And when I start realizing that, I awaken. Okay?
Yep.
So number 11, last one. Power I have over the extension of perfect love.
The power I have over the extension of perfect love is not a threat to its reality. If it be free already, it only attests to it. Where could my freedom lie but in myself? And who could bind me but myself if I deny my freedom? Pure forms of awareness of perfect love is not more. No more can its extension be imprisoned except by its own desire. And it is by its own desire that it is freed. Such is my strength, and not my weakness. I am at my own mercy, and I am free where I choose to be merciful. But I am held a prisoner where I choose to condemn instead, waiting in chains for my letting go to set me free. So it's here, stressing here that it's down to us to choose freedom, really, and if we don't, then we have to acknowledge that it's ourselves that are refusing to accept it.
Yeah, which is taking 100% responsibility. You know, who keeps you in prison? Who keeps you unhappy, miserable, sick, suffering, dying? Well, yourself. You know, you can blame the world all you like, but actually you did it to yourself by just choosing to come here. Who chose to incarnate? You did. So whatever happens then in the dream is actually your responsibility. Again, it's a difficult one for people to accept. Very few people want to accept such total responsibility. But it's the only way out of the bind that the ego's got us in. Because if you're not responsible, then how do you change it? And you're just a victim of, you know, of the world you see, and there's nothing you can do to change it. I'm held a prisoner where I choose to condemn instead, waiting in chains for my letting go to set me free. So as soon as we condemn anyone, we're condemning ourselves. We're saying, well, I'm bound by the same laws that I apply to them. So if they need to be punished and to suffer and to die, then so must I. It's so obvious that, you know, you think we'd have got it by this stage, but you know, the ego is very very stupid. So it needs pointing out over and over. Jesus has to tell us. Well, when you condemn anyone, you're just condemning yourself. Because as you think towards them, that's actually what you're thinking about yourself. And so you imprison yourself with these insane thought forms. And no one can help you unless you're willing to let them go. There's no salvation in the ego. So if you don't want to let them go, then you're going to be a prisoner forever until you realize that these are not true and you're willing to let them go. Okay, so yeah, good section. Do you want to read the summary? It's now 10 o'clock, and if you want to go, that's fine. There's a short summary and a key message if you want to read that.
Yeah, let's just read it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reason, not sin, guides me to the correction of errors, leading me away from the belief in separation. It tells me that when I think I've sinned, I should call for help and accept this help and extend it. And accept this help and extend it to companions to recognize my unity with my companions and myself. I cannot accept or refuse correction without my companion. As our minds are joined and private thoughts are impossible. Pure forms of awareness of perfect love thinks with its extension. And bodies, being separate, are unreal. I can leave madness behind by accepting reason.
Okay, so pause there. Any thoughts?
Well, it's just saying that we need to take responsibility for what we think.
Yeah, and you know that the believing you're a body is insane. Believing you're a body is mad, which means the world is mad because almost everyone believes they're a body.
Yeah.
You see that all the time, and in so many ways. You know, people who we dress our bodies up, we adorn them with all kinds of things. People do all kinds of well, you know, the whole cosmetics industry, fashion, beauty, cosmetic surgery, going to gym to make the body look good, etc., etc. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And he's saying, well, this is all just madness because you're on a body. So what you're adorning is just a delusion of yourself.
Yeah.
It's ultimately going to disappoint you. But, you know, and it doesn't happen immediately. You think plastic surgery is going to keep you younger, for instance, but you're going to die anyway. You're going to age and die anyway. And actually, you see, the more plastic surgery people have, the worse they look. So it doesn't even work.
No.
Looks terrible.
But madness attacks reason, driving it out of my awareness. But reason takes its place if I choose to listen to it. It must recognize that the body does not separate me from my companions, or else I am insane. If I choose healing instead of sin, I affirm my unity with my true self and my source. Through reason, I understand that correction brings healing and awakening. My awakening lies in understanding that my companion and I are joined in pure forms to awareness of perfect love rather than fear. Reason assures me that the state of pure forms of awareness is what I want. I am my companion's awakener, and by accepting and extending what pure forms of awareness of perfect love gives me, I learn what I must be. I have power over the extension of perfect love, and I am free when I choose to be merciful. But if I choose to condemn, I imprison myself and must let go of this condemnation to set myself free.
Yeah, so nice. The summary just gives you the kind of the key points, really. Just a reminder of what's been said, and then just a key message. Which
reason guides me away from separation and towards correction, and unity with my companions. I must recognize that our minds are joined, bodies are unreal, and my madness can be replaced by reason. My awakening lies in understanding and experiencing my oneness with pure formless awareness of perfect love, leading me to choose unconditional love over condemnation, and in the process, my freedom.
Yeah. So any last comments or thoughts on that?
No, good summary. I mean, yeah, shows us that we are joined and reaffirms that we are joined, and reason will help us understand that.
I think my final comment is that there's two thought systems, and the reason of the one does not reconcile the reason of another. If you think you're a one awareness as opposed to separate identities, those are two fundamentally different premises. And so a different thought system and a different reasoning comes from each fundamental assumption. And you can't reconcile it.
Yeah.
So the ego has its own reason and logic, but because the premise on which it is based is false, all that reason and logic is spurious, as is shown here in this sentence to hell diagram, which we showed. I don't know if you were here when we showed it. I think you missed that bit.
Yeah.
So because the fundamental premise of separation is insane, then everything else is mad. Whatever comes from that is insanity, even though it appears to be real and sane to us. It's totally insane because the idea of separation was never true. And the reason of the Holy Spirit is simply that, well, none of this is true. It's all the product of a mad idea, which has got projected out, but that idea is not true, so none of this is true. So the true reason tells you that only the truth is true, only this pure awareness of perfect love, or what we call God, is true. And just remember that in the face of all the madness that the ego has projected out. And that process of remembering or reinterpreting the dream is forgiveness or letting go. So, and the more I go over this, I mean, we've been over this many, many times, haven't we? Just in our own sessions. The more you go, this makes so much sense. This is so simple.
Yeah.
Saying it's clear, it's logical. There's a clear logic and a reasoning behind it, which completely contradicts the reasoning of the ego, but then it has to. Because if you believe in a little bit of the ego, then you believe in all of it.
Yeah.
Caught up in that thought system. I think too many people and teachers try and figure their way out of the illusion within the construct of the illusion. You're never going to get out if you buy into the idea of separation. It's not impossible. You have to reject that completely and totally in order to be free. And that's where the radical forgiveness or letting go of the course comes in, which is saying is actually reason. That's true reason brought into this insanity. But the world will go, you're totally mad, because the world's denied this and gone, actually only separation is true. As I said, the insane inmates in the insane asylum will not welcome generally someone who's telling them the truth, because they'll just say, well, you're the insane one, we're sane. A la, if you remember Plato's cave analogy, that was essentially what that analogy was all about, with allegory, sorry, with Socrates' as teacher is the awakening one, and these people are enslaved and insane in the cave, and he comes in and says, hey guys, this isn't real, there's another world out there, come and check it out. And they go, oh no, you stone the messenger, kill the messenger. That's always the way it's been, and it probably will, as long as the ego continues, it's never going to welcome this. But we all have a choice. That's what he's saying. You have the choice to choose between these thought systems, and no one can take that choice away from you. It's up to you. Even in the most dire circumstances, be tortured, crucified, like Yeshua was, like Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in a concentration camp, his whole family killed. He still had a choice to say, I'm not going to believe in this. I'm going to believe in something else. They couldn't force him to believe anything. And that's, that's where our freedom lies. So yeah, on that note, well done. We got through that in about under an hour, which is good. So got some text in. So hopefully see you again next week. We didn't actually. Let's just stop the recording, shall I? And on YouTube.